Good morning, channel friends. Hi. Today, we're going to show you how to make this chest of drawers, which has truly wonderful shapes, look fresher and more modern with the new Magic Paint color. Well, not new, it's 2 months old. But it's new because there's not yet a tutorial with this beautiful color. It's called Bacio di Rosa. I created it thinking about my Rosa, my daughter. But first, we start with this lovely top, which is the star, and we strip it to let this beautiful wood breathe. Let's start with the paint stripper. Magic Paint stripper. It's amazing because it's biodegradable. It doesn't pollute, it doesn't harm your breathing or touch. The only thing it harms is your nail polish, so if you're wearing nail polish, make sure to put on gloves. It works fast on these finishes. So, in my opinion, in about 15 minutes, it will strip the top, and then we'll move on with the rest of the restyling. Now, the first step is to strip the top surface. I've already washed the rest of the furniture with our bar. We got a head start. So, the rest of the furniture has already been thoroughly cleaned with hot water, baking soda, and ammonia. But first of all, we want to bring some brightness to the handles, so Emma and I are starting by removing them. Always remember that paint stripper must be applied generously, and it should never be allowed to dry out, so it's better to put a bit more on, like I'm doing now. Remember, our paint stripper should never dry out. So, if it's a very hot day, make sure you're in a shady spot. So never in direct sunlight, and if it's very windy, cover it up. But what's the trick? The trick is to keep eye on the surface. Never leave it for hours, ever. So, check back every now and then. If you see, like at this spot, some patches where it starts to get darker here compared to there, it's because it's already taking effect. It's already working. What do? Massage it, move it, and try to gently help the surface strip as quickly and efficiently as possible. This way, we'll optimize the time, the costs, and it'll turn out even better. This chest of drawers is a modern reproduction of the Baroque style. It was made in a much smaller size, because then, furniture wasn't made in such small sizes. They were much larger, much more massive. It's been done quite well. It's made of solid wood, it's high quality. And they've also remade the handles, just like they used to be back in the day. And where can you tell when there are reproductions, as well? Also in the methods they used to attach the handles, in the way they did certain steps. Here the handles were placed with nails. A handle shouldn't be nailed, it's screwed on. What do? We need to be very careful when removing this handle. How? Being very gentle. You have to be careful and avoid damage. You take a very thin spatula. You gently try to apply pressure on one side and the other. And you also change sides as you lift it. Keep going. Be careful. Also use a little cloth to help you. Why? Because this way you can avoid putting pressure on the wood. We put the cloth underneath and use it as a lever, like this. This way we won't damage the wood. We'll apply pressure, slowly. Here too, you need a lot of patience to avoid cutting into and damaging the wood underneath. Here we go, I'm almost there. Slowly. Voila. Obviously, we clean the underlying part. You see there's a bit of verdigris here. There are some impurities. We wash it, we clean it, and we put the handles in our vinegar and salt solution. Let's see how it's done. Our removed handles look a bit shabby, but you can already see the original shade at the back, which is very bronzed. Vinegar and salt, how much? Well, it's quite by feel, but this is how you do it. You sprinkle the handle with salt. Let's say this mixture with white vinegar, yellow vinegar, red, whatever you've got, the vinegar that costs you the least, helps to effectively remove the surface oxidation. Then, of course, they need to be cleaned. We can also use a brush to help ourselves in other ways, but they need to soak a little bit in this lovely solution. If you listen to me, don't throw it away. As you can see, even if it's cloudy because I've already used it, I keep it in this jar. That way, next time I might get lucky. I toss the knob in here, pull it away, and it's perfect. I'm going to reuse this. I put it here. And nothing goes to waste. Voila! We leave the handles to soak for about half an hour, then we take a look, see how they're doing, and try to figure out if we can already wash them with a brush and some Marseille soap. They'll turn out great. The paint stripper is ready. How do I know it? From several things. Usually, you do a test on a little corner, remove it, and see what happens underneath. But please, there's one thing you need to be careful about. The color doesn't change when you strip it, at least not always, because often it's not about protection or varnishing, but about mordant, which are the dyes. Those are removed differently. We'll see how. Now, with a spatula. Gently, mind you, be careful with the sides, because the sides could cut and scratch the wood. We remove it, and this is what you get. As you can indeed see, this brown patina was the shiny finish that was quite bothersome. We've removed it perfectly. Voila! Due. Let's continue in an easy way. Emma went to get some alcohol and some steel wool to give a pleasant and smooth finish and to remove a little bit more of the dye. A bit of mordant over the years has colored the wood. Don't be fooled by the color the wood has taken on. Obviously, you look at it and could say to me that it's the same. What's happened? Now, the shiny part is gone. Now we need to help it become slightly lighter and less stained. How? Steel wool. I'm just starting now with a slightly coarser wool, and then I'll move on to a slightly finer one. Follow along, if you can. The grain of the wood. What does it mean? If the wood goes like this, you follow it here. Here it's a bit more difficult because the wood grain forms a diamond, a rectangle, a square. Sometimes they're veneered in many ways, so try as much as possible to follow the grain of the wood. You'll see that the color comes off, and you'll notice it if it comes off with a nice, clean, well-wrung cloth. This cloth is a classic microfiber cloth. It's damp. We run it over. And if you see here, there's some dye, some color. This reference is very useful because it makes us understand that it's been stained, and yes, the wood can become much lighter and can also become much more pleasant. Because I'm not really fond of this reddish tone today. So we keep removing the stain, the dye from the entire surface. 15 minutes have passed. This is the result. I've already tried washing one. It's not finished like this. But this step is crucial because they shouldn't be left in vinegar and salt for too long, and we need to see if this step has worked. It worked. Now I'll put them in a bit of powdered soap to help clean them further. I'll scrub them with a little brush, the classic nail cleaning brush. What do I do? Meanwhile, I take them out from vinegar and salt. I rinse them thoroughly, so this mixture stops its effects. And I definitely don't waste the vinegar and salt mix that I've got left over. I strain it into a jar and I can use it loads of times. Before starting to scrub them, I sprinkle them with a bit of soap. Even the washing machine powder is perfectly fine. So that the layer of dirt left on the surface starts to soften, I'll use a bit of hot water. I leave them like this for 10 minutes. Then I start washing them thoroughly and properly. For me, using the old Marseille soap is the best, the one that was used back in the day for cleaning and washing clothes. It works brilliantly. Now, let's leave them here for a bit so they get degreased a little, and then the final step. While Emma finishes putting paper tape on the sides of the drawer, because it's best not to paint the runners to ensure the drawer slides even better and to keep them clean, I start with the first coat. I use two brushes, the oval 50 or 60, the one I like the most, and the pointed brush, because the pointed brush is good for nooks and crannies and decorations of furniture, while the other brush spreads smoothly and fluidly on larger surfaces. We always load the brush well so that the reservoir is nice and full of paint. Make sure of that. I stroke the bristles. And now I start. We always begin by spreading the paint. Make sure to get into the slightly trickier parts, the sides and the little corners. Because the secret to a nice coat of paint applied smoothly is to completely remove all the brown-colored surface with the first coat. So if on the second coat we still find ourselves with a lot of little brown spots, it means that we did not apply the first coat so well. We slowly do all the edges first, like this. And the corners. And then, without any trouble, you switch brushes. So it's really important, when dealing with furniture like this, to have both brushes. I load it up very, very well, because the reservoir needs to be nice and full. Remove that. And apply the paint here. You can do an application, like mine, all over the entire surface first, but always remember that we get the best result if we do the crossed brush stroke. What do I mean? First on one side and then the final stroke, always following the grain of the wood, like this. Nice, smooth, clean, and velvety. We mustn't make drips. There we go. Let's check the sides properly. There shouldn't be any drips now because they don't look good. They seem a bit careless. This is the panel. I carry on and finish the rest. The handles have been about half an hour soaked in soap and water, and they look like this. If you touch them, you'll see they're chipping. So all the dirt and grease is dissolving. I take my brush, a bit of classic Marseille soap, head to the sink, and I start to do this. The dirt comes off straight away. It doesn't stay anymore. We'll see the shine, the brightness of the handle. Obviously, no handle is the same as another because they're made with metal alloys. Sometimes they're brass-colored, sometimes golden, and sometimes even copper-colored because there's actual copper inside. So, depending on the alloy they're made from, they'll have a different shine. Look here. Now I wash them a little bit more. I leave them to soak a bit longer after scrubbing them like this with soap and water. I put them back here. I leave them here longer as I work on others, then I'll go over them again. There's a nice difference from before to after, though in a bit they'll be even more beautiful. Sometimes, to achieve perfection, one step isn't enough. First, we put them in vinegar and salt, then we put them in soap, we scrubbed, then in soap again, then scrubbed again, and we've got to this point. To get to this point, we need to do one more little step, and this is perfection. And I'm really happy because the tone of the handle is perfect for the tone we've chosen for the furniture. Not all the pegs always fit into place so easily. So let's put our finished handle here, and I'll show you how it's done. I've placed a cardboard. Then take the handle, add a few drops of jasmine oil, which also has a few drops of silicone inside, so it will help you over time to preserve it from future oxidation. With a very fine steel wool, the 000. I start massaging the handle and the real magic happens. Because we're going to very polish the surface parts. And we bring out a slight gilding that sits on the coppery part, the more rosy part, and will have more depth. If the handle were all gold, it wouldn't be that beautiful. It's really beautiful because it has two colors. It has a rosy copper underneath and on top. It has this very beautiful, very elegant gold. Voila! So, thanks to this final step, I've managed to get an even more beautiful, more three-dimensional handle than before. Now we set them aside, let them dry, and then we'll place them on the furniture. Second coat of paint. The first one has dried well. If you want to speed up the drying, use a hairdryer or a heater. The important thing is to always apply the second coat when the first one is fully dry. Otherwise, instead of a second coat, you'll end up removing the first. Watch out! I use the same method as before. I always use pure paint because it helps me to be much more covering if you want to have a very velvety surface. Take a sponge to smooth surfaces, a fine one, a microfiber cloth, and do this step. Then, with the cloth, you go over it and remove the dust. You'll have a very velvety effect. It'll be incredibly soft, like a baby's skin. I do this everywhere. While the furniture is drying, I protect the top with wax. Do you see how beautiful? Have you seen how spectacular these wood grains are? So, we need to preserve this beautiful furniture. What do I do? First, I use Jasmine wax, which is a beeswax and carnauba berry-based wax, highly natural, highly protective, and highly water repellent. A trick, if you want to make your furniture even more velvety, after applying the wax, after a few days you can use the Restorator. It's really a beauty treatment, preserving the wood long term. Now I apply the wax, and in a few days, I'll see how it goes. This is how it's done, with a brush, never with a cloth. Anyone who tells you to use a cloth to apply wax wants you to use a lot of product and buy more. So, you apply it with a brush, that way you don't waste any. You get right into the wood fibers, and then you massage it with a cloth. I drain the excess, and now watch the magic. The wood becomes velvety, hydrated, and of course, it gains its true tone. Before it was lighter because it was a bit drier. It was unprotected. Now, by applying the wax, we're really going to hydrate it 100%. Voila! The scent of jasmine wax is exquisite. Is a cold-pressed essence of jasmine mixed with essential oils. It's truly a treat for your furniture. I spread it all over the top. Remember, if the wood absorbs a lot, and in some spots it seems to become light straight away because it absorbed it all, you can reapply it. It simply means it needs more hydration. We'll be applying this transfer on the sides. We've chosen the larger version as theirs. Medium and very small, but why do we want to use the big one? Because the combination will look much more modern. If we used small flowers, they'd end up looking like a doily, which wasn't our style for this piece. It's called Magnolia Grandiflora, and watch closely how Emma applies it because it will be a truly essential and contemporary application.
I'm just going to cut out the flowers that I need. I'll cut this one with the stem. I apply it first, scratching generally over the entire surface. And then, little by little, I remove the protective film.
After applying the transfer well onto the furniture and finishing with the wax on the top part of the wood, we apply the same wax on the rest of the furniture. Always the jasmine wax, so with one product you have two solutions. We protect both the wood and paint. In the meantime, we've put the handles on. You see how they fit well with this shade. They've taken on this coppery golden color. Beautiful. Wax everywhere to keep it beautiful and protected. If you apply that wax over the handles as well, it's even better because it seals them and keeps them protected from oxidation for quite a while. They'll stay this beautiful longer. One last beautiful step. With what? With the graphite wax, which is a wax that has the true color of a pencil, so graphite. I'm using a pointed brush. It goes well into the moldings. I load the brush. I carefully remove a bit of the excess and then, with the brush, I go really well inside the molding. Remember, you absolutely cannot do this step if there's no clear wax underneath. So first you protect with the clear wax, the one that you already have, the Legendaria or the Jasmine, it doesn't matter. Then you apply this wax. The longer this wax stays in contact with the base color, the more it tints it. One of the tricks to do this technique well is to go deep, really deep. In fact, there must be wax in these grooves. You mustn't make the mistake of leaving it pink. Make sure to spread it well because you should use a little wax. Otherwise, you're just wasting the product. I start from here, go up to there, and then I'll show you the next step, which I really love. With a microfiber cloth using the side with the shorter hair, because it removes less, we're going to lighten it up. Look here. All the areas where I pass the cloth will be lightened. The wax will remain in the lower part. So in the part where I have really worked it in, and instead, it will be considerably lighter in the part where I rub with my cloth. You see, in this way, I've completely highlighted all the molding. If you want to lighten it even more, there's a trick. I'll show you right away. If by any chance you've aged it too much and want to lighten it just a bit more, you just need to take a bit of jasmine wax, the one you applied underneath. You pass it like this, quickly, and it will act like an eraser. You take the cloth again, go over it, and look, as if by magic, it lightens even more. The color becomes lighter and lighter. So don't be afraid to try out this technique, because, you see, it's really easy. But above all, it can also be modified and shaped as you like. The transfer is here. I don't want to apply wax for 2 reasons. Partly because near the transfer there's a step that's just 1.5 millimeters of plastic, and I don't want it to slightly emphasize the line of wax that contrasts. I want to keep this flower's lightness and not cover it with black. I go around it. Everywhere. I pause momentarily here, and in just a few moments you'll see how I handle it when I want to lighten up and I'm close to the design. I start to lighten here with the cloth. And just like before, we use our trick with the clear wax to remove the excess. I start to massage with the cloth the entire frame where the flower is. And I just need to take a tiny bit of wax and apply it like this. To achieve this blended, very elegant effect. I'm leaving it like this. I don't want to remove it. So on this part, I won't wipe the cloth over it anymore. But I really like having a shaded frame around the edge of my flower. This restyling is finished, and Pina is with us today as she evidently loves this furniture, but especially the rug. The Bacio di Rosa color with the graphite wax has become even more serious, don't you think? Perhaps it was more modern, it was lighter, more playful. In fact, with the wax it has gained a very elegant shade. I like it. Moreover, this combination with the brown wall is absolutely perfect. Always playing with warm tones, the browns, the pinks that lean towards brown, I think we've achieved a really elegant color balance. Remember, you won't find the Magic Paint products on Amazon, but on the only Italian site that sells Magic Paint, which is called www.elisiahome.com. But if you want a good retailer, visit the www.magicpaint.it website and find the one closest to you. They're divided by region. Remember one more thing, there's the summary. All the steps and products are well organized. You can't go wrong. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.